And we're rolling.
And we're rolling.
Rock and roll.
Rolling.
It feels the same, right?
Yeah,
like
it's
before
fine. Yeah,
the camera gets pressed on. It's the
Hey,
same
here's to a
thing.
good evening tonight, boys.
Cheers,
Thanks for
boys.
having me.
Yeah,
Nice
to a
be
good
here with
conversation.
royalty.
Shit our
Cheers,
dad
man.
taught us. There we go.
There's a lot of shit my dad taught me.
We're here for it. We're here for all of it,
Let's
man.
let it all out.
Usually I just start by introducing our guests. So if that's okay, I'll
Yeah, man,
take
go
that
for it.
honor. And we use ChatGPT.
Oh, this
So
should be good.
ChatGPT, usually pretty accurate. So tell me how it did, okay?
All right, let's check it out.
So to introduce our guest, I'm sitting with Dr. Shahab Tabesh, a dedicated family dentist and co-owner of Romic N Tabesh Family Dentistry in Burlington, Ontario. Alongside his wife, Dr. Christina Romic, he has been serving the Burlington community for nearly 50 years, providing high-quality dental care to generations of
ChatGPT got that
families.
one wrong.
Bro, how old are you?
I'm 43, so
The camera takes 10 years off.
it takes a century off.
Man's out here with that little Tykes set. I can get that tooth out. So it says, professional background, education. Dr. Tabesh earned his Doctor of Dental Surgery, DDS, degree from the University of Toronto in 2008. He furthered his expertise with a dental residency at Sunnybrook Health Sciences in 2009.
Yeah, ChatGPT is fired, bro.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was my wife.
Fix
The first part was right.
No,
I like this. Keep going, man.
Yeah, no,
I like
it
this.
goes on to say...
And actually, ChatGPT is making me look way better than I actually am.
I want to ask
Athletic abilities.
I want to ask about the 50 years, though. How'd you get there, man? Tell me about the clinic.
No, you know what? We bought a 40-year-old practice as a gentleman, Dr. Peeling. We
Okay.
ran it in Burlington for 40 years.
Okay.
And then we've been there for a decade. So 40 plus 10 is 50, but they forgot that there was a guy before us. And I don't know how he worked for 40 years. Blew
Yeah.
my mind, man. Like lone wolf dentist. Amazing.
Yeah?
40 years in the same office. Yeah, yeah.
Same
Really
same
good.
size, like same footprint where you are now?
Yeah, he's the one that
Whoa.
built the one we're at. When he was there. He was in 2 different locations. So he started on Mountain Grove and then moved to where we are now.
That's dedication.
ran
Eh?
it.
40 years.
40 is solid and the best exit strategy ever. He's
Go.
like, I'm turning 65. 40 years. I'm done.
Where did he move to? He moved out of the country.
He didn't move out of the country.
No?
He's still in Burlington. He's a big guy with Ribfest and Rotary.
Oh, awesome.
So he's like a huge pillar of the community for the last few decades.
That's awesome.
Nice.
But
And that
he
was
just-
Dr. Peeling?
Peeling, yeah, he's a good dude. But he was awesome because he's just like 65th birthday. I'm done. Like very matter of fact. And I'm like, okay,
So
cool.
you still got 30 years to
I'm
go.
pretty sure. Oh man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. 30 years is pushing it, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
That's the
Yeah,
best,
good
man.
dude. But that's where the 50 came from. So the practice
sure.
is 50
Okay.
years old. Yeah.
Well, so ChatGPT had a little more.
That's what makes it fun.
There.
That's
I know
what
that.
makes
I
this
also
fun.
like it. It combined my wife and I. Yeah, we
Yeah.
both graduated from U of T. She did the residency, but all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it goes
Does it
on
say I
to
have a
say
sick jump shot?
it actually says jump shot week is what it said here. So,
Last week.
yeah, it said pretty soft when he plays basketball. So it also says, as part of a second generation practice, okay, so shout out
There you go.
ChatGPT, Dr. Tabesh and his team offer a comprehensive range of dental services, including preventative care, cosmetic dentistry, and restorative treatments. The clinic is known for its patient-centered approach, emphasizing honest communication and empathetic care.
I got that one.
That's
Bang.
pretty good.
Bing, bang, boom.
That's pretty good.
Empathetic.
Empathetic, my
Empathetic.
favorite word.
Oh, not and pathetic. Sorry. Empathetic.
I read that wrong. Yeah.
Damn
They were
Chat
talking about his
GPT.
yeah, they were talking about his jump thought again. It's a jump shot.
Jump shot is pathetic.
Pathetic. And then community involvement, which is we're going to talk a bunch about this today, but it says you are actively engaged in the Burlington community, contributing to local initiatives and supporting various charitable causes. Your commitment to community well-being is reflected in the practice's longstanding reputation for trust and quality.
Oh man,
Boom,
that's
boom.
oh man, that's really good.
I feel like it's dialed in.
I'll take it all.
I know you as that guy. I mean, I'll pump your tires for a sec. Obviously, we're on shit my dad taught me. We're all Burlington dads, and you've been a big part of that for a long time. Probably my favorite part about that, and Jamie and I talk about this all the time, is there's some guys in the group that just step up and do the right thing. And having another guy pump the tires, having another guy promoted is like the last thing you're thinking about. So we've seen, because we're kind of behind the scenes a little more than most, we've seen, straight up the money you've put into the community, the time you've put in. So shout out for that.
Well, it's amazing to be in Burlington because there's so many guys who've done as much and way more, and it's amazing to be part of a crew like that. Because sometimes for you guys who are leading the way, you don't want to be on an island by yourself. And I think that's the wickedest part of this whole thing is like not one guy or 10 guys, like 4,000 guys, and everybody's doing a bit of what they can. And yeah, some more, some less, but I think it's incredible.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
It's beautiful.
Man. It is.
And for me, like Burlington's probably like I was born overseas and I moved around a little bit. So Burlington's been the place I think I've been the longest. So it's kind of cool because growing up, there was never like I grew up in Scarborough. So that was my identity. And then I've seen like over the last 14, 15 years of being here, I'm like, oh man, okay, I'm like a Burlingtonite now. And it's wicked. The sense of community here is amazing. And the ability for people to like come together, especially the dudes who are like, a lot of it is like full range, but like the mid-career guys, everybody's busy.
Yeah.
But somehow everybody's like, hey, let's take this role that we have in the community and kind of raise this village together. It's not a village, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I think it's incredible.
Yeah,
It's a really wicked.
6,500 guys as of today. 6,500 guys.
Crazy. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
And only like 3 of them are.
Yeah, we're gonna finish
Douchey.
December around like 210, 220 grand raise this year. So it's been crazy.
From
guys
ground
like you.
floor, like
It's all
crazy.
guys like
No,
you.
it's more guys like you, but thank you.
yeah.
I'm happy to be a small piece of it for sure.
A big piece, man. So in recognition of those 6,500 members, Jamie is going to read each of their names.
Yeah.
Here you go, Jamie.
Can you just read the 4 guys that have been kicked off?
And they're vertical. let's start with Shahab.
So, bro, you said born overseas. Tell me about that.
Yeah. It's born overseas. So I was born in Iran, like in the middle of a war, which is kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of cool because you could be like, I was born in the middle of a war.
To look back on it,
but then like you're a kid, you don't know any better, right? So the first 4 or 5 years of life, which you don't really remember much about, was in that environment. Then lived in Turkey and Sweden for a few years, and then moved to Canada when I was 8. So it's funny because like my name is very ethnic, but my identity is very Canadian, which I think another interesting part of being in this community. Because you're 2, 3, 4 years old, you don't know nothing, you don't know where you are and what environment you're in.
Yeah,
you move around a little bit and you see people, but the amazing thing about being a kid is you don't see all that.
There's no
other
separation.
stuff.
Yeah.
There's no separation. You're just like your kids, and you're playing with this group of kids and that group of kids. It doesn't matter where. As I got older, I'm like, oh man, this is one of those like Burlington. I think is an amazing spot for it, is like the Canadian experience of like everybody coming together. So yeah, so I was born overseas, spent all my first 8 years traveling around. I did my best traveling before 8 years old, and then landed in the immigrant haven or heaven of Scarborough, Ontario, and kind of forged our Canadian path there. And then when it was time to raise a family, we came to Burlington and with the plan to raise a family here. And it's been like a perfect move, like really amazing. Because I wouldn't change anything about that beginning of life, but to raise a family and to get established is, in my opinion, obviously biased opinion, this has been the best, absolutely the best.
Yeah, I feel the same. We're lucky men to be here. Yeah.
And no matter what
Shout
your
out
background is,
Burlington.
where you grew up and how you grew up and where you were born, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And tell me about like your family. Tell me about mom. Tell me about dad.
There a lot to tell, but what I tell you, yeah, they're Persian or Iranian, so that country has been through a lot over the last few decades. So they saw a lot more problems, and it was, the departure from the old country was not like a nice, let's get the suitcase and plan it out. It was more like of an escape, which is kind of cool. And it also, when you talk about shit my dad taught me, shit my mom and dad taught me, it's kind of cool to be part of a legacy of like bettering your family, bettering your environment, bettering your society, and setting up the future for success. And so my parents are both still around. My dad's 82. Mom's 75, healthy as can be. So they're
Nice.
good. They're good examples of health. They're good examples of like worldview. They've been through so much. When you grow up in those types of places, you get exposed to a lot, and you see a lot of human psychology, human patterns, and you see social and political strife.
They've seen a lot they want to forget.
They've seen a lot they want to forget, and it's kind of cool the lessons that come out of that. And so I had the blessing or the privilege, of not having to experience any of the bad stuff,
Right.
but learning the lessons that those types of experiences kind of teach.
And
so
they live here? They're Burlington?
Yeah, they're here, yeah. Yeah. Not in Burlington, sorry, no, they're in Toronto. in Toronto, yeah, but they're in Canada.
Nearby. So let's go back to the subject matter at hand, which is shit my dad taught me. So your dad, obviously, it sounds like great guy, thinking of his family, doing all the right things.
Yeah.
Give us some shit your dad taught you.
I think the most important thing, like, is objectivity, and it was like from parenting. I think the most important thing he taught me was objectivity, because like and this is sometimes where I find a cultural clash sometimes, or I get kind of confused when we look amongst parents. I'm like, some people take the approach of like, I'm going to protect my kid at all costs. We were raised in an environment of, I'm going to stand up for you if you're right, and I'm going to make sure you know if you're wrong. So I think, and in a very logical way, never like in an angry way, but it was the main lesson I think growing up was, and you get this when you grow up in an environment that's very volatile. If you go with the ebbs and flows, there's a lot of highs and lows. So being objective is really important, because in the turmoil, it's important to be able to step back and assess things objectively despite the emotion. And I think in parenting, that was the most important thing, is just take a step back, assess things objectively. That's how we were raised. That's how I try to raise my kids. Probably more emotional than that last generation was, but that's probably the most important lesson when it comes to parenting and being a dad anyway.
Were you an only child, or?
No, there's three of us.
Okay.
So I have an older sister. She's 7 years older. And so when we immigrated to Canada, like with nothing. So she kind of played the surrogate mom role. And then my brother and I, we were obliviously happy in our own world because we're 12 months apart. So while everybody else is going through like escaping the countries and setting up shop and trying to make a living and all the other stuff, we were just two stupid boys just enjoying ourselves. It was awesome. That was a wicked childhood.
How's that for symbolizing what it is to be a dad, though, eh?
What was that?
That's my favorite, dude. So I have this duck sitting right here, okay? And it was gifted to me, and I'll tell the story another time. But the reason we have the duck here is the methodology of, and you've probably heard it before, but a duck on a pond.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at the duck, all you see is the body going across the water, but what you don't see is the feet kicking like crazy to get them there, right? And that was, that's always who I strive to be, right? Don't let the kids, don't shelter the kids.
Yeah.
Let them feel the right and wrong. Yeah. Totally agree with that. But just give them some peace, right?
Yeah,
if they're looking at you, let them see that we're moving down the pond and it looks pretty smooth.
Yeah, you know what, man? It's amazing, because most of the things that happened early in life, we were totally oblivious to. Like, we had no idea what was going on, and only learned of it through like other people who would be like, "Oh, how did you feel about this situation?" I was like, "Oh, I was just chilling with my brother playing with Legos. Yeah. We didn't realize what was going on." And I think that goes to your point. Like the parental role, I think for us is steady the ship. No matter how crazy things are, whether it's a drama here or if you're in the middle of a war, you're escaping, whatever it is, the role of the dad where we can is steady the ship or the duck and make it look smooth.
Make it seem like it's okay.
Make it all seem okay. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great analogy. I haven't heard that analogy before. That's really good. Yeah.
Well,
although we did have a picture of this little loon in our washroom for like decades. So maybe that was the symbolism, and I had no idea.
What did your parents do when they came to Canada, and what did they do?
It's crazy, because like overseas, you come from like a world of luxury, and we were talking about business earlier. Like it's a hard move to make. I have to kind of look. They were 40. How old were they? 49 and 41. So we're all approaching that age if we're not already there. They give up everything. Came here with nothing. So the beginning jobs were like straight ground level stuff. But part of the reason like the kids ended up educated is at 50. They went back to school and they started learning, and they just
your parents did?
Yeah, like they started doing like not like full-time academia, because you couldn't.
Yeah.
But they got jobs as like, my mom got a job as a secretary in a financial firm. And then by the time they were done, so you start your career at 50, and by the time they were done at 65, they were like executive level. So it's just like, they kind of, again, it wasn't words, but they showed, hey, you study. Like, they would work their full-time job and come home and study all night for their, CFA or whatever designation it was. Yeah, as a kid, you kind of look at it and go like, oh, I guess this stuff kind of pays off. And that's the thing kids don't get to see, right? Because usually by the time kids grow up, their parents are past that like academic or like building stage. Yeah. We had to watch it from the ground up while we were growing up. And that kind of set the wheels in motion for us.
50, I want to be on a beach or in a treehouse.
That's what it is, man. And it's
I don't want to be
wild.
starting my 19th career.
But I bet you if you were in the same scenario where you all of a sudden everything you've worked for your whole life is wiped,
Yeah.
and you're at zero and you've got a couple of kids, you got to figure it out.
It's crazy.
It's also, you know, it's not all bad. It also shows like how awesome Canada is, where within a generation you can go from a 50-year-old and a 40-year-old with nothing to a fairly stable, safe life. Like we talk about this in our family all the time, and most immigrants do. This is an experience some people you don't get it unless like you experience it. But a lot of people go, this is the beauty of this place is you can start literally with nothing, and with good attitude and effort, you can make it. That social mobility or economic mobility is amazing, but it takes a lot of work.
What a story, man. That's
It's kind of crazy.
And that probably set you on your academic path too,
ChatGPT
right?
didn't throw that.
No,
in.
ChatGPT's
ChatGPT's like, yeah, whatever. So yeah, that's kind of the background story. And so you're like, shit, my dad taught me. I'm like, yeah, there's a few lessons in there we could throw out.
I bet.
Yeah.
But that probably started you and your academic pursuits. Your siblings the same?
Well, you know, every family is funny. So the most successful one of us is the least academic, but because he learned other lessons in the process, but still the concept is the same. Like for me, I'm not that street smart. So I was like, I better be good with books because I'm not street smart. I have a brother who's super street smart. And so he's like, man, I'm not going to waste my time with academics. I'm going to apply myself in real estate. That's where he applied himself. Super successful. And then I have a sister who's a lawyer. So the two of us who are nerdier took the academic route, and the rebel was like, all right, I see the work ethic, I see the effort, I see the relationships that are important, and he took it that way. So we all did awesome. Pretty good. Mostly because like in a typical thing, we were just like, okay, these people like risked everything for us. We better do some shit. we better not waste this opportunity, right? So there's always it wasn't like an absurd pressure. It's a pressure you put on yourself. Because we firsthand watched them struggle. And you go, okay, I better not screw this up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it goes back to your comment too about the economic reality of where we live is there's so many ways to succeed. You know, you can find a path and find that success, whether that's monetary or just lifestyle or whatever. But there's 100 paths, man. It's I don't take that for granted.
I get a little sad sometimes because, you know, in the current conversation, there's a lot of like anti-immigration stuff. And yeah, Canada like opened it up a bit too much in my opinion. But like the thing is, if you bring in the right type of people into a country like this, into a community like this, most people are good and most people want opportunity and they'll take advantage of it and they'll build on society. So I kind of get sad sometimes when you hear some of the negative stuff. You go, yeah, there's a bad elements.
Proper paths.
There's proper paths. And it's funny because like...
And changing those paths and opening floodgates is what screws things up for everything.
And this is the problematic because you should...
Which gives immigration a bad name, right? Which is the problem.
Super. And the people who are most against bad immigration policy are immigrants. Yeah, for sure. Like our family. Like we sit down and we're like, man, just let's like make the proper path, get the right people in, people who are here to build society and contribute. And it's
like
amazing.
Not to get political, but like that was a huge shift in like all the southern states. Like most of the southern states have a huge Spanish population, and a lot of that population is what switched over during the last election. 100%. Because they're like, man, like this doesn't make sense anymore. Like, close the fucking door.
I kind of laugh. I don't know if I should tell this story if we're not getting too political. It's all good. But I gotta have a lot of family who, like, again, back to the old country. Like there was a huge revolution in the late 1970s where a lot of people left, and so most of them went to California. So that's where you get your California Persians with their BMWs and slick back hair and mansions. And like I have family that went to Kentucky and North Carolina, so it's really funny because we're like. They're genuine, like,
I love
excuse the term,
both those two places.
but it's like they're redneck Iranians.
Yeah.
Like they're like super hardcore conservative, and like they don't realize they're immigrants. Like they've forgotten about it. It's gone. And
I could live in either one. I could drink the bourbon in Kentucky, or the Tar Heels are my favorite.
Yeah, amazing.
College team. Yeah. Love it.
Nice. Is that enough for you? Background.
What about your wife's story? Where's the
similar,
missus
man?
from?
It's kind of crazy. Because we came in '89, so we came from Iran, which it's still problematic in geopolitically. and she came from the former Yugoslavia. So that place was being torn apart by war too.
Right.
So, but we kind of, again, we were blessed. And again, it makes you sad to watch the world and how much is going on, because we're both kids who managed to escape, thanks to our parents, those like very volatile, violent places. But we came here, and Canada again gave the opportunity to like build up. And both families, I think we were both raised with like never a negative connotation towards the countries or the people that you were at war with, because that's just an old rich man's game,
Right.
So we came to Canada. Canada gave both of us the opportunity, even though we're from different countries, both like places of war, to have a peaceful, nice existence, which was kind of cool. Same year we showed up, like we didn't meet each other for another 10, 15 years. But yeah, it's the same type of story. Yeah.
Met in university, I'm guessing.
Yeah, in undergrad. So it's funny because Chris knows the story of how I became a dentist, which maybe I've told patients. I went to school. I wanted to be a gym teacher. We keep joking about basketball. Like
You look for the easiest path.
I legit was like, I did everything, and I was like, I was going to be a gym teacher, and I was like, I did my undergrad at York in health science. I was like, to this day, I just love sports. It's my favorite thing. And I met my wife, and I was like, oh man, this girl's really smart, and she's really pretty. And she was applying, and I was like, all right, I'm going to apply too. Let's see how it goes. And I got in. And that's how I became a dentist. So there's no actual like intent. I didn't have any like passion to fix people's oral health. I was just like, this girl's super hot and I want to hang out with her. So let's go. And it happened. And this is what, 21 years later, 22 years later, here we are. Maybe not the dentist or
teacher dropout.
Yeah, I was gonna say, beautiful women make you do shit. Huh? What a change.
You know what? Like, it's funny because like legit, I was like, the way I met her. I don't know if you guys remember this, but before I'm in that weird age where it's like we weren't quite computer savvy, but computers were becoming like a thing. But when they used to post our grades, it would be outside the lecture hall.
Yeah.
Post your student number, and they would post your grade. So you'd go, and there was this one student, like I kept coming second in the class at everything. I'm like, who's the student number that keeps beating me? And I'd seen her before, but class of 400 people. I was like, there's no way this chick's that smart. And then when I figured out her student number, I'm like, oh my God, the pretty girl is also the smart girl. So probably the smartest decision I ever made was to marry or pursue my way.
She's not even opening the books. You're just grinding, trying to beat her out.
Like, who keeps beating me? And it was her. Yeah.
That's a great story. It doesn't matter how bad your free throw is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's a girl out there for you.
Yeah, I was listening. We were talking about relationship people before. I heard somewhere with like a successful relationship, you have like a common story. Common story. So ours was kind of like you're both kids that are escaping those types of countries and those types of scenarios. So you feel blessed to be able to grow up here as opposed to in turmoil. Then we both showed up to Scarborough, Ontario, where it's funny because you can't see me, but I'm pretty like racially ambiguous. You can't quite tell.
Yeah.
So like I showed up and I was the white kid in the school, even though I didn't speak English. So we both ended up in those environments. Then we both same undergrad. We both drove a Cavalier. So that was like how we got together. We were both good at school. So.
You didn't speak much English by the time you got there?
When we came to Canada?
Oh,
no. By university, yeah, I figured that out. But no, when we first came to Canada, nothing. Yeah. But nobody in my school did. It was hilarious because there was just, I guess at that time there was so much immigration happening and everybody in the same neighborhood. So it was hilarious. We showed up and I have a good friend of mine. I don't know, again, in this day and age, if you can say this stuff, but whatever, I'm going to say it. I went home after the first day because, we grew up in Iran, Turkey, and Sweden. So I'd seen people with brown hair and people with blonde hair. And so we showed up, and my parents were like,
in Sweden, they wear a little bit less clothes on the females.
That's a different story. And I went home after the first day, and my friend Jimmy's still one of my good friends. I went to my parents. I'm like, where the hell do people with orange hair come from? Like, I had no idea. I'd never seen anyone. He was a light-skinned mixed kid with orange hair, and I went home like, I don't know. You guys tried to warn me about all types of people, but I don't know what this guy is.
You know what I've always wondered is, and maybe you have the answers. Like, how did parents back then, whether you guys were in Turkey or Sweden at the time when they made the decision, but like, how did they decide when they're like, hey, I'm going to go to Canada, where they're going to land in Canada? Because like, I'm assuming there's not too much education 25 years ago. It's like, hey, this little pocket has this little pocket has that. It's like, no, we're gonna go to Canada. And
No,
like,
you go to Canada.
boom, you land in Calgary.
You figure it out.
Like,
Yeah, I honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I know when we came, it was they had a friend who lived close to where we ended up settling, so they called that like one friend, and then that one friend introduced them to a realtor who put us in a certain neighborhood. Like I don't think there was a lot of thought that went into it. It was the decision making is more what country do I go to than what city do I go to.
Right.
And so they could have sent us to Saskatoon. We wouldn't have known any
God
better.
You didn't.
Yeah.
I was born in Weyburn, Saskatchewan.
Oh,
so.
yeah, so they totally could have, and we wouldn't
I stuck
have known
around for
any
6
better.
months and got the hell out of there.
So yeah, I honestly don't know. I think now, because it's so multicultural, I think a lot of people will know, like, if you, there's also like two types of immigrants, right? There's the ones who come here who are like, where are my people?
Yeah.
And I want to go there. And I think there's another group who comes in as like,
I want to be Canadian.
I want to be Canadian. Don't put me where my people are.
Yeah.
And so we were more of that second group. So where I grew up, it wasn't a lot of Iranians. But yeah, I don't know what specifically went into that. Again, I was just an 8-year-old kid who was like, oh, I get to go on an airplane. Cool.
Yeah.
Wherever you take me is all good. Yeah.
What's your wife's family like?
Super cool, man. They're European, chill. Like, she's, what are they like?
Are you guys all super tight? Like both families
we're
super close?
tight. This is again the beauty of Canada. Is you think he's someone from Europe and someone from the Middle East. How much could you have in common? A ton, like a ton. They drank more than us, but aside from that, I caught up.
Yeah.
But no, they're good people. I think culturally and ethnically very, very similar. Foods were like similar with variation. And then the primary things in both cultures are family and food. So you get together in most cultures, right? So
and work hard, both of them. Yeah.
Hard work, yeah, for sure. Like my father-in-law passed away a few years ago. Mother-in-law just retired. But like down to earth, hard work, and they did the same thing, right? You come, you haul ass, you work hard, you teach your kids to work hard. And again, yeah, like another kind of first generation type family. They did fine because she has a brother. He's doing great. But yeah,
Was she super
they worked
close
hard.
with her dad? Was she a daddy's girl?
Yeah, 100%. And it's a big loss. You know,
Yeah.
you lose parents, it's always a huge loss. And I don't know what you guys' situations are. But it was huge, and it was young. He like fairly young. He was 64. It just like fell down the stairs. It was like a crazy,
That's
like
young.
random thing. A great guy, and again, like most people, showed up, worked his butt off, and made sure that the next generation was set up to work on. You know, you can't go from 0 to 100. So just like, okay, let's set up the building blocks, and then we kind of hand off the baton to us, and then this is kind of our driving force. And I think that's the way we work, because like, again, that common story is like, okay, we're both holding the baton, and now the goal is set up the next generation and help the community that you're in.
Yeah. What's his legacy like? Has he left you with any words of wisdom? Anything that I know father-in-law relationships are unique.
A lot. So one thing that's kind of interesting was, you know, it's like we're around each other long enough. It's like you have two different dads. My dad was a political, like, what do you call it? A diplomatic, intellectual type, not hands-on at all. Her dad was like a big engine mechanic. So he taught me a lot of like how to actually do stuff with my hands, which worked out nicely in dentistry because I was academically really smart, but I never used my hands for nothing. Like I didn't learn how to fix stuff. So there was those kind of like practical daily, like how to be a dad stuff, hands-on. So it was kind of cool because one guy taught me kind of objective thinking and assessing the world and politics and finance and that type of thing. And the other dad taught me, okay, this is how you fix a lawnmower and this is how you fix something in your house. I'll never be to that level. So it's kind of cool to have those two guys kind of as my what do you call them?
Yeah.
What's the word?
Mentors.
Yeah, my two dads, mentors. Yeah.
Yeah.
In my 20s, as you're going from being a kid
Yeah.
to a man and you become a professional. So it was kind of cool to have both of those guys.
Were you a mama's boy or were you closer with your dad?
Oh,
Or
man.
still closer with
My
your
parents are very different. So I think they contrast each other like super well. So the dad part is like logical, academic, you know, politically savvy guy.
Upset with your jump shot.
Yeah, no, sports was never a big issue.
It's
and my mom
it's
was
a
just like,
terrible jump shot. I just
and my mom was just pure heart. So I to this day have a great relationship with both, but they're different relationships. Just like our families, right? Like my wife and I are different. My kids have a different relationship with me than they have from my wife. But the thing we try to do anyways is complement each other. So some stuff they get from me, some stuff they get from her, and go from there. I'm sure your relationships are similar.
Well, I think that's like, we talk a lot on this show about mentorships and having those male role models. And man, if you can find two guys that love you, two guys that want to see you succeed, you're bulletproof.
Yeah, 100%. I've been blessed, man. For sure.
Yeah, it's the best.
Having great in-laws is huge. Like you talk to so many people that whether they're joking or just being cast about it, but like you talk to a lot of people and like, oh fuck, going to my in-laws for Christmas.
Yeah,
like,
we never had that.
I hate doing that, and I'm like, I'm blessed too. Like my in-laws live like 3 blocks away, and like I absolutely love them. Like I could live with them, no problem. Like they're just amazing. They're like brothers and sisters kind of, or like second dads or whatever, right?
It's
like
the best.
Yeah, like it's a great feeling. But then you hear other people and they're like, hey, like fuck, I can't stand being my
can't escape them. Yeah. We've never had that issue. Like my brother-in-law and I get along well. Although he's funny, he's like a very quiet guy, and so the joke in our families, we've been married now for 17 years. He said no more than like, hey, what's up, while we were dating, while we were engaged. But like the minute we got married, he was like, all right, we're family now. And he just like flipped the switch. So he's a very like matter of fact dude. So he's like, I'm not wasting any time on this guy until it gets serious. And then for the last 15, 16 years, we've been like super good friends. My wife and my sister are best friends, which is a little bit of a dangerous, a little bit of a
You're
dangerous
setup. Your story straight.
Yeah,
for sure.
but yeah, they're great, and yeah, in-laws are huge, and it's kind of cool. Again, it's like I love this. As I keep going back to the Canadian experience, I'm like, I think it's super cool that our families came from very different backgrounds, very different countries, but like we're able to melt together, and even the parents themselves. So like my mom and dad and her mom and dad. But when we weren't around, they would get together because they liked each other's company. And I think they were different enough that there was a lot to talk about. But again, they were bound by the same kind of like basic principles of family and work ethic and kindness and community. So yeah,
so your guys' parents they've instilled a ton on both you and your wife. Now, what are you hoping that you guys are able to achieve by instilling in your kids, since they're obviously not going to have the same experiences and have the same stories to tell?
Yeah.
They grew up in Burlington. They've seen a totally different life.
The bubble is crazy, man, and this actually is probably the biggest challenge. And sometimes you talk about being objective, you have to take a step back and be like, okay, this is our individual life experiences, and then you got to be fair to your kid. That objective thing of like, what is their life experience? So like, I think the fact that like most of the grandparents are still around, and even the grandfather that passed away, he was around long enough that the kids got to know him. I think that was huge, to hear their story and their background, and have a face to the experience.
To know it wasn't always perfect.
Yeah, to know it wasn't always perfect. And this last year, we went back to her home country for the first time. It was kind of cool because they got to meet cousins and go into environments that you otherwise wouldn't. And we always think of Europe as this like, she's from Croatia, right? So this super fancy Adriatic environment. It was cool because we went back and the kids were exposed to the Burlington life, which is really nice. You know, when we go on vacation, really nice resorts and restaurants. But we also went inland to where like the regular people live, and where my wife grew up on the hill in a farm. Like, so it was kind of cool. So exposing them to that is really good. But they also, I don't necessarily want them to be beholden to that legacy where they like feel guilty. You don't want to make the kids feel guilty that they've had an easier life than past generations, because that was the goal. I think the big thing we try to instill on them is, hey, listen, like a foundation has been set, and success isn't a year or 5 years or 10 years, whether it's success in life, success in marriage, success in business. This is a long game. And your job is very simply to take this platform that you have and build on it the best you can. And I think that's what we try to set up for the kids. Is you don't have to be mom, you don't have to be dad, you don't have to be grandma, but there's a baseline. Be grateful for what you have. Be grateful for the opportunity. Be grateful to grow up in this extraordinary bubble of like Burlington. But never forget that like a lot of work has gone in, and you have a responsibility to kind of grow on that.
Yeah.
So that's the pressure we put on the kids. Is like, you're not allowed to go backwards.
And
I don't care how much forward you go, but based on your specific capacity, you should move forward.
And education going to be like a must-have go-to with you guys, or
No, not to the. I think a big thing is what is Maslow's hierarchy? Is self-actualization. Is this generation has the privilege of being able to move within socioeconomic structures beyond just education. So for a first generation immigrant, that's the easiest way, right? It's the most defined path is to go through education. This one, I don't think we don't put as much pressure academically. The pressure is, hey, figure out what you're good at, figure out what you like, and use the privilege that we have as Canadians, as Burlingtonites, as people who have opportunity to just go as far as you can in that. And I think that's what we try to instill in the kids.
That's
so
awesome.
it's not
That's a great way.
If they have an academic, if they have an affinity for academia, we'd support it. But I've seen the other side too, where kids don't have the affinity and parents push too hard, and it doesn't work out well for anyone. My brother, for example, like super smart, street smart kid, if he had gone the academic route, he probably wouldn't be as successful as fulfilled as he is in his current state. So that's where the thinking changes over generations.
You think your father and your father-in-law had a moment, maybe they were tipping a whiskey or something, and they had a look around and they realized they both raised doctors? And they
No, because we're not real doctors. We're just dentists, man. the immigrant family doesn't go, oh, congratulations, you're a dentist. They're like, oh, fuck, we didn't get a brain surgein. Maybe in the next generation. That's the reality.
So to your
of it,
parents, you still haven't really made it.
No, you know what? We never actually. They were so busy trying to get by that there was no actual academic pressure. The academic pressure was self-inflicted because you go, okay, I better do something because you saw how hard they worked. You don't want to waste their efforts because they literally gave up everything. Like, I'm not going to pretend like there's no way I could ever be at the level of selflessness that generation was, because they literally were like, they lived for their kids. There was nothing else. Like, I don't remember them going to a restaurant, hanging out with friends, doing podcast, like nothing. It was just literally work.
Yeah, you
to get it going.
I want to be the best gym teacher I can be.
Whatever, bro. I think I would have been pretty good. I would. That's my only question in life. I'm like, I really think I would, man.
You don't think she would have stayed with you if you were like, hey, like I'm gonna keep going down this path?
She would have for sure. She would have, I think, but I don't know.
You were trying to be protective. You were like, if I'm in the same class, nobody else is looking at her.
This is it, man. As a 23-year-old boy, I was like, I'm not taking any risks. I really like this girl. I'm going full tilt.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I'm stalking her right to the end of the day.
A side thing, when you apply to these universities, like lots of people apply, and it's a small pool of people that get selected. And my acceptance letter went to the junk mail.
You guys should try one of these. Try one of these drinks.
Yeah, let me pass her. Let me buy you a drink. No, I'll go.
Oh, this. So my admission letter went into the junk mail. So for 3 days, I was like, oh man, she got in. I didn't. I was like, okay, we're gonna find out. She's gonna stay with me. And then I realized it was in the junk mail, and that became a non-issue.
That's funny.
And we went, actually. You know, dentists have the thing that is very common in dentistry. Like when we first got in, people were like, you want to be a dentist? It's a high suicide rate. And we went to dental school, and they're like, "There's a high divorce rate." So right off the bat, like it was almost like you want to prove
we're gonna
them
get
wrong.
divorced and kill ourselves.
Literally, first week of school, we had what was his name? I think his name was Dr. Lim. I forget the guy's name. I wish I'd remembered it, but he found out that we were dating, and he looked at us in a matter-of-fact face. He goes, "It will not work." No one in this profession stays together. It will not work. So we're 20 years trying to prove this guy wrong.
I'm assuming that like they said, because like the amount of hours, like most dentists that run their own practice, like they're putting in a ton of time. I'm assuming that's probably the
you know,
reason.
it's
Yeah, I'll give it a try.
Well, it's not
I'm
bourbon.
not a Scotch guy. I'm a bourbon guy, but I'll take one for the team.
I'm sorry, I'll bring a bourbon next time.
Our parents have all been through worse things. So.
Cheers,
Cheers, boys.
In dentistry, it's cheers. Take a sip. The downfall is very common with
It's that peatiness.
Yeah, you
It's
don't like that,
like,
eh?
It's so good.
It's the after.
it's like dentists, doctors, pharmacists, CEOs. It's being on an island. So when I was in my undergrad, I actually did a little project on it because when I got in, I was like, oh man, all everybody keeps saying is like, oh, suicide's like really common in dentists. I'm like, I got to figure this shit out because I didn't hear that about gym teachers. So I did a little research project in one of my psychology classes in undergrad, and it came out to isolation. And so you'll notice now in medical practice, dental practices, law practices, everybody's trending towards group practices. In the old generation, even if you work with a group of 20, when you're a CEO, when you're the doctor, when you're the dentist, you have no peers. And this is where, Burlington Dads and some of the initiatives you guys have in terms of mental health are important that the last generation didn't talk about. So the cause for the downfall was you have the pressure of running a small business, you've got the pressure of dealing with people in very, for lack of a better word, intimate or close quarters, and you have no peers to bounce ideas off. You have lots of employees, you have lots of subordinates, but you have no peers. And so that was a lesson I learned even before I started, just through the psychology course, was the big variable is that loneliness. And it's literally loneliness at the top was the reason why all these guys were committing suicide or having like alcohol and drug abuse issues and high divorce. It was all that isolation. So the modern setup of medical and dental practices didn't happen by accident. I think we learned from the past generations and go, okay, I can't do this on my own, because you can't be the CEO and the family man and, everything all at once. So it always works better in a group.
I'm sure this is going to get us a bunch of hate mail sent, but like you mentioned pharmacists, and maybe you don't have the answer to this, but like I've always looked at it and been like super confused. I understand why doctors go through so much schooling and dentists go through so much schooling. I don't understand why a pharmacist goes through so much damn schooling when all they're doing is reading a prescription, opening up a pill container, spreading it out, and then handing it to somebody and charging them for it.
You know what? I'm going to give you the answer for that, because they're the gatekeeper, man. Because one of the things that happens with dentists and with doctors is they see high volumes of people, especially in a modern society. The pharmacist, in my opinion, is actually one of the most important people. Because what ends up happening is you go to a walk-in clinic or you go to your family doctor and they write you a script, and you go to a pharmacy. And the gatekeeper is the pharmacist, because the pharmacist is the one who studied all those years to know every interaction, every side effect, every issue. So they're the ones who call the doctor and go, hey, man, are you sure you want to put Jamie on this? Because
every time I go, they're like, have you taken this before? I'm like, no. They're like, okay, read the instructions. I'm like, can I drink on it? They're like, you shouldn't. Can I eat on it? You should. Great. Like, thanks. Appreciate that.
To me, honestly, I'm going to stand up for pharmacists on this one. I never pretend like I was smarter than I was. Like I said, I applied and I got in. I was like, oh, that was lucky.
Like, I knew some good pharmacists in high school. They were really smart guys.
So these guys are that.
Those were the gatekeepers.
Yeah, they actually know. The pharmacists, the number, I guarantee you, like, no one wants to say it because we want to pretend like the physicians and the dentists and the doctors are like super smart. They're the gatekeepers. The number of like interactions, the number of allergic reactions, the number of anaphylaxis that pharmacists intercept is huge. So yeah, shout out to the pharmacists. They're really important.
All right, I'll accept the hate mail and they'll appreciate you.
Have you ever studied chemistry, man? It's hard. To me, that was the hardest course.
Chemistry, I love chemistry because there's lots of math in it. I love math.
You're a math guy. Yeah. To me, I remember looking at chemistry and going, I do not understand why anybody would want to do this for a living. Chemical engineers and I couldn't comprehend. But yeah, it wasn't my strong point for sure. But yeah. All right, so hate mail to Jamie, love mail to Shahab when it comes to the pharmacist.
Shout out pharmacist.
Shout out if you want to send any pill bottles my way.
We should stay on the whole. Cause this is funny because, like, when I knew you were coming on, I thought to myself, I know the guy, I know the dad, I know the community guy, but I don't see you in a white coat very often from time to time. But let's talk about you professionally, and specifically, I want to talk about. There's going to be some people listening to this that might not have access to the level of care that we do, and great dentists in town and things like that. So, if there's a dad listening who's got a kid or about to have a kid, tell me a little bit about dental health. Tell me a little bit about what you tell new parents they should be doing to help their kid have that dental health.
I think one really important thing to understand about dentistry is you can't bullshit dentistry. And what I mean by that, and I heard a great quote once, and this goes, I'm going to talk on cost and then come back to what I would actually tell a parent. It's like, dentistry is not expensive and it's not hard. neglect is expensive and hard. So what young parents just need to know is there's nothing hard about it. Like it's very hard to parent. It's very hard to parent a little kid. But as far as like dentistry on its own, it's actually like super simple. Just wipe their teeth once a day to make sure bacteria can't eat away at the tooth structure. The analogy I always use is an apple. So you can't allow, you get the little brown spot in the apple and it spreads. The whole job we have of maintaining our teeth, it's like it's so simple. You just have to keep the surface clean enough that the bacteria can't make a hole in your tooth. So for a young person, young family having a kid, when they come in for an appointment, it all just comes down to, hey, before the kid goes to bed, take a little face cloth that you have, wipe the front of their teeth, wipe the back of their teeth, make sure the milk's not sitting on their teeth. And that, like, super simple. And this is why dentistry is good for me. It's super simple. Is the problem is people don't know. So they think it's like way more complicated.
My firstborn had bottle rot.
Bottle rot, because no one probably said wipe it.
I'd get him all capped or like fake teeth at 3 years old.
Yeah, it's terrifying, man. I've had kids where I have had to, on a 5-year-old, take out all their teeth.
Yeah,
and you can't give them dentures. But it just comes down to communication. So I think sometimes people have a lot of anxiety, so they worry about like what they're supposed to do. It's putting the kids to bed with a bottle. People don't know that they shouldn't. So milk has sugar in it. So what rots teeth is sugar. So
and he wouldn't go to sleep unless it was a bottle.
Unless there was a bottle.
So he'd have to fall asleep sucking on it, and like we had no idea.
Yeah. The other thing I also say is like there's no shame in that, right? Like you didn't kill the kid. No. Like, yeah, you got some cavities, you got them.
And he had the best damn teeth for the next 2 years after
2 years.
Yeah. So he had 4 fake teeth.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Jimmy actually got him grills.
The metal ones? Oh, that'd be amazing. They come and go. Yeah. So for a young person with young kids, it just comes down to hygiene. The hard part is when things go the wrong direction. If you don't have the means and the access, then it becomes difficult to figure out how you deal with it. Very often kids have to be put to sleep, so that creates a huge burden and anxiety on the parents.
Oh my god,
it's so worst, stressful.
My little guy, she's like, can you hold the, like, it was to put the gas mask over him. Mm-hmm. So I had to hold it over him, and I'll never forget those like 5 or 6 seconds.
Oh, terrifying.
Because he was like fucking losing his mind, like I was like smothering him, and like you got to hold it on him while he's like, his eyes are just rolling and he's like fighting it like crazy, man. Like, that is the hardest moment I've ever had with him, because like I'll never forget that moment.
Did you find like once he was asleep too? I found that when like a bit terrifying, because you're like, oh my god, this little.
I've had some weird experience where like I had like a little cousin that like passed away. And,
oh my god!
So like he had cancer when he like since he was born, and like battled through it for a couple years. So like I've had weird experiences with little ones. So like that part didn't bother me, knowing he was sleeping, because I was like okay with it. He's calm, the fact that I was putting him through that torture, like I couldn't.
It's traumatizing to everybody, right? It's so traumatizing.
But he didn't remember it when he woke up. Like I waited a few days and like, hey, like, do you remember being at the dentist? But like he didn't remember that part because it was like so scarring.
Again, this is the beautiful part of where we are, because you can get an anesthesiologist who we have access to put a child to sleep.
Yeah.
In a safe environment, you have access for people to do the work, and then it's all good. You forget about it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Back to your point about like advice for young
tell
parents.
me the cloth. I'd never heard that.
That's such a simple idea, and I've never heard of it.
It's super simple, but the thing is, like, people think this is like some magic thing that causes decay or that causes infection. It's just bacteria, and our teeth are not meant to handle bacteria sitting on them for long periods of time. So I just tell parents they could take a washcloth. We all have those little 4x4 inch washcloths that we wash their face with. Before the kid goes to bed, you wipe. If the baby can't, or if the child can't go to bed without the bottle, like the milk, first thing you try to do is slowly wean them onto like warm water or something. But again, this is hard to tell parents who are exhausted and at their wits' end. But once the child is asleep, pull their lip, take the cloth, wipe the front, wipe the back at least a few times a week, so that bacteria can't sit on there. Because all the bacteria wants to do is sit on there and eat.
I think all we ever think of what is a toothbrush, right? We would never cross our minds.
You don't need to brush the 9 months old teeth, right? You don't need an actual toothbrush. So that's what I'm saying. We make it harder than it needs to be. And a lot of that is communication and access to care. Access to someone who can tell you, hey, just take a cloth, wipe the front, wipe the back, you're done. 6 seconds,
Yeah. I think the problem is that like most parents wouldn't take their kid to the dentist that early either, right? So like how do we get that information out there other than podcasts like this?
So
it's hard to get that info out to those parents.
So the pediatric associations say take your kid to the dentist in your first year. But most parents are like, why would I do that? Because they're thinking of like the teeth. But the reason the pediatric association says that is for the conversation. So what I typically do in my practice is if I know someone's having a kid, you don't need to bring your 9-month-old who's screaming and crying and exhausted to the office. I'll have the conversation with the parent and just be like, hey, bring your kid in like when you can or when it fits your schedule. But it says having the conversation is important. And it goes back to like our profession sometimes is like it runs too rapid and it's too transactional. And that's where like having relationships is so important. Because like in our practice, you say 50 years old, like we have really good relationships. So grandma will tell you that her daughter is having a kid and you note it because you know who the daughter is and you can have the conversation. So in community-based practices that have been around for a long time, those conversations get had more often.
Right.
In environments where it's more of just a transactional relationship, you show up, you get your cleaning, you don't know who's cleaning your teeth, you don't know who your dentist is, like there's no family relationship, those conversations sometimes get missed out on.
Right.
Yeah.
So first conversation with your dentist in the first year, try and keep milk off the teeth, go for a little wipe if you can with a dry cloth, right?
That's the main thing. Dry wipe, it doesn't even matter. You can't have food debris or milk sitting on the teeth.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
And then fast forward a little bit. When do you like starting? Like when should a kiddo be booking in to see a dentist? And when does brushing start, flossing start?
So the kids are variable, right? In terms of their personalities, in terms of their ability to sit down for a moment, in terms of their ability to adapt to strangers. So I often, to me as a dentist, I think the most important conversation is the ones I have with the parents. I usually say if your kid hasn't been in by 3, they should be. So the official stance of the dental associations is 1, which is idealistic. And if you can, great. By 3 for sure. And the point of by 3 is some of that bottle rot stuff, if it can be caught at 3 and fixed up pretty good. If you wait till 5 or 6, then it's too late. And that's the story of like the kids where I got to pull out all their teeth. And now the kid has no teeth until he's 7, 8 years old. And it's just the front ones. It gets awkward. So ideal 1. Secondary would be like 3 would be a benchmark for sure. Just again for conversation and just getting the kid comfortable in the environment. For the dentist having a quick enough look to be like, hey, I see some problems, or hey, you know what, you're doing great, you're genetically lucky, whatever it is. And then the regular routines usually, in terms of cleanings and that stuff, usually start around 6 when the adult teeth are in. So 3 to 6 is kind of a variable zone. Usually between 3 and 6, I'll see the kids once a year just to check up, catch stuff when they're little. Because the other big thing is anesthesia, putting kids to sleep, right? You don't want to be putting little kids to sleep too often. So the goal in that 3 to 6 age range is catch stuff super quick and fix them when they're small. So if I use the apple analogy with the decay of the apple, you don't want to wait until half the tooth is rotten. You want to catch it when the rot has just started. You can do it usually in 5 minutes. You don't have to put the child under, so the parent doesn't have to go through the emotional trauma and the expense of putting the child to sleep, and you go from there.
And then when it's time to start brushing, like what do you tell kiddos? What should they use? Are they using toothpaste from day one? Are they using? So
as the teeth come in, I tell the parents like usually around 3 or 4, kids like to mimic their parents. So sometimes people come into the office and say, "Oh, I have bad teeth. It's genetic." Now, I think 99% of the time, your habits are your habits are what's passed on. It's not necessarily your teeth. So, usually, what I tell parents is around 3 or 4, when the kid can start to kind of do stuff on their own, let them do it on their own. And a lot of parents try like break their back or break their neck trying to clean the kid's teeth in the bathroom the same way we brush our teeth. That's not how you brush a kid's teeth. The way you brush a kid's teeth, you lay them down in bed. You don't need fancy toothpastes. Again, it's just literally debris on your tooth structure needs to be removed. So the best way to do it is when the kid's laying flat in their bed, they open their mouth and you go in with a toothbrush and you brush. And
3 boys, and I've literally never been told any of this.
Yeah. So and then the back 2 teeth in each corner have to last till the kids are 11. So those are the ones where we see the kids with the big silver crowns. Those teeth rot a lot because they're usually tight together. So when the kid's laying back and their mouth's wide open, the parent can see the upper teeth and the lower teeth fully. Whereas when they're standing vertical at a mirror, You can't see nothing. You see the front 4 teeth. You can't help them. So lay them down, brush the teeth if the kid can't do it on their own. And then the big one is if their teeth in the back are tight together, you want to just get the floss in between, the little floss picks, you know, what do you call them?
The kids flavored ones.
Yeah, the kids flavored
Crayola
ones.
makes them and stuff.
They open their mouth and you see the top and the bottom, and between the back 2 teeth on the top, both sides, you get the floss in. Bottom teeth on, you get the floss in. And if your kid's in a good mood and staying open, you keep going. One of my good friends, he's a pediatric dentist in town. Shout out to Burlington Pediatric Dentistry. He's awesome. And Dr. Charlotte. And I think at one point he posted a video because he's got 3 boys. And this is gentle parenting as it goes out the window here. But sometimes you just got to get the job done. And so he had a video at one point where his boy was laying in his lap and he had him in a headlock. So the kid's laying down and the kid's screaming. And he goes, the best thing your kids can do is scream because their mouth's wide open. And he goes in and he goes, clean it up. And the kids don't remember nothing before they're 4 years old. So they're not going to be emotionally traumatized. I don't think so anyway. And you get then you get the teeth cleaned. So if they're screaming and yelling, you know, sometimes first time parents, you know, they tend to be the gentlest parents. Like the kid's screaming, yeah, it's fine. Like the kids scream, that's what they do. Like they want everything their way. If they yell and scream, they're gonna forget. They're gonna scream more if they have an infection. They're gonna scream more if they have an abscess. They're gonna scream more if a dentist has to give them a needle. Just 10 seconds, let them scream, clean it up real good.
So
and good to go.
Question, and I know that there's no right answer from coming from a dentist, but like, what's the better option? So, I drink Diet Pop. I don't drink anything with sugar in it. So like. Red Bull, I drink it sugar free. But my kids, in my mind, I'd rather them drink a Coke if they're going to drink something or drink, you know, a Fanta or something like that. Yeah. And I understand that there's sugar in it, but in my mind, I'm like, well, I'd rather give them that than aspartame. I don't want to pump them full of like other drugs that are in there. But Gatorade, I do have them drink Gatorade Zero instead of regular Gatorade because it's super jacked up in sugar and stuff. From a dentist point of view, like I know they should be drinking water all the time, but like if they're going to drink something, like should a kid be drinking a diet something or should they be drinking a regular with sugar?
Is my official answer or my dad answer?
Both. Give us both.
The official answer is your kid should be drinking water. Why is your kid drinking sugared up drinks? But as a parent whose kids drink sugared up drinks and as a dude that drinks a lot of Coke, the reality is the reason the pops are bad is because they're acidic and they're sugary. So acid and sugar are combined to create a lot of damage. The worst one is Mountain Dew. So if I had to say don't drink anything, it would be Mountain Dew because it's like super acidic, super sugary. So that causes the most problem. But in the end, as long as you clean them, you're fine. You know, unless you're that super small minority of people who actually genetically have super weak teeth.
What's your take on the diet stuff for kids?
In terms of aspartame?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would stay away from it. Yeah. I would rather natural sugars or regular sugars than aspartame because there's my undergrad was health science, so it was a big amount of emphasis on like try to keep away from all that secondary stuff because great, it's sugar free, quote unquote, but it's a whole bunch of other problems.
For sure.
And I have one of my best friends that I grew up with. He's a chiropractor, but he's like a real athletic trainer, like high level guy. He trains one of the Raptors, like health is like his main thing. And his thing is all the out of shape people I know drink diet, whatever. So there's just whatever it does to our body is so negative that it's better not to have it in your system. So I'm with you. I think if you're going to do it, just have the Coke and brush and floss and go on with your day.
Right.
When do you start introducing, have a sip, man. I feel like you're in the hot seat right now. Sorry to do it to you. Cheers.
My answer's okay. I don't know. Are you kicking me out? I haven't cried yet. You promised me I would cry.
ChatGPT will tell us that.
Yeah, that's right. Cheers, man.
I can talk for 50 years. It might be here forever.
Well, no, I'm interested too because this is shit that I haven't heard. So this is great, man. So the other thing is just going chronologically then with kiddos. When do you start introducing fluoride? Like when do they start using toothpaste?
So the answer is when they can not swallow. So again, this is your kid better than anybody else, right? Some kids are like silly, some kids are goofy, some kids don't have the dexterity to be able to like realize what they're doing. So some kids, if you give them toothpaste, they'll brush and they'll swallow. If they're swallowing, you don't want to be ingesting fluoride. We hear of our RFK and he's getting rid of fluoride in the water. Fluoride is good, like most things in the world, is good when used properly and bad when used improperly. So if the kid is at the stage where they can brush and spit and rinse and spit, which is usually around 5 years old, you're good. But if you find that you're giving your kid the toothpaste and he's like, "Ooh, this tastes amazing," and just wants to eat the whole tube, then yeah, don't use fluoride, because fluoride's an adjunct, right? So again, it helps to clean the teeth and to harden the teeth so you don't get decay and they don't fall apart. But if you're brushing every night and you're flossing and your diet's reasonable, may not be necessary. So I wouldn't push fluoride to a young kid to ingest, thinking that for the dental benefit. But once they get to a point where they can apply it topically and then rinse and spit, then they're fine. Usually around 5 or 6 years old.
My 5-year-old's the opposite. He puts toothpaste on his toothbrush.
Yeah,
Just
so
like,
that kid
he
is
spits like every 3 seconds. I'm like, dude, like you've done
Fluoride,
you put
the boom.
toothpaste on like 5 times in the last 3 minutes. I'm like,
as long as
it's
he's
great that you're
brushing the
doing
teeth,
it, but like just keep that shit in your mouth for a little while. Like brush it. Like I want to see it
Just get
dripping
the-
down your face. Like that's when I know you're brushing your teeth.
yeah,
good,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
And then my 11-year-old, like he'll brush his teeth and like no bubbles in his mouth. I'm like, dude, you're barely putting any
Barely touching anything.
toothpaste
Yeah,
on there.
for
Like,
sure. The worst is when they brush, like, the one thing conversation I have with like young kids is like, don't just brush the teeth you can see. Because what we see is like the thing that rots like most often is upper back teeth. Because the kids will stand at the mirror, open their mouth, they see all the bottom teeth, and they see their front 6 upper teeth. But they don't see any of the upper back teeth, so just ignore them. So that's another thing I usually tell parents and kids is just like, don't forget you have teeth up there just to clean them.
Okay. And then flossing. When do we floss? So
You know what? Shit my dad taught me. So I never forget, man. So remember, I became a dentist now because I was a lifelong, I have so much dentistry.
start
in my mouth.
flossing 2 weeks before your dental appointment. Because then that way they don't get pissed off with you
that's
when your
the
gums
bare-
start bleeding.
That's the bare minimum. That's the dad answer, right? I never forget, man. I used to sit as a teenager in the house, and my dad would be flossing his teeth, and I was like, this old man is so weird with this string. But the reality is, you floss the teeth you want to keep. So the same guy who I thought was weird is now 82, 83 years old and still have all his natural teeth from the third world. This is not first world stuff. It's like working out, man. If you're consistent and you make it part of your habits and you maintain yourself, you're going to be good. Flossing's the same thing, though. The sooner the better. For little kids, like once those back molars come in, it's on the parents to try and get in. It's on the dentist to teach the parents. It's on the parents when the kid's laying down to clean between those back 2 teeth. And then the hardest part is teenagers, right? Like, I don't know. You guys have teenagers? You have a teenager. You have a teenager.
11 and 14.
11, 14. Yeah, so you know.
I'm not
like,
there yet.
So I find girls are pretty good because they're big on hygiene. Boys care not for hygiene in my experience. So it's trying to teach them to floss and clean. And then that's when most of us, myself included, had most of our cavities. Yeah, flossing all ages would be the ideal answer. ASAP is if you're not doing it, start ASAP, because that actually, you talk to different people from different walks of life and you have to frame things differently. So to the teenagers, I'm like, you got to floss so stuff's not between your teeth so it doesn't smell gross, so that the girl you have a crush on doesn't smell your bad breath. To the kid in their 20s, I'm like, you got to floss because you don't want to spend $3,000 fixing cavities with me. You want to spend it going on vacation with your girlfriend. So to older people, you got to floss so that you don't end up having to spend tens of thousands of dollars rebuilding your whole mouth. So in the end, like, again, dentistry is not hard. You keep the bacteria off the teeth. You're good to go. It's 2 minutes a night. We all do all sorts of stuff. You guys probably do stuff 2 minutes a night. No.
On this episode of Who's in Your Mouth.
So yeah, flossing, the earlier the better, but if you haven't started.
So take your business hat off, but put your schooling hat on.
Mm-hmm.
How often should I be being convinced to get my kids in my mouth x-rayed? When, is this like every second time that I'm going? So every like second 6 months checkup, do I legitimately need x-rays at 42 years old?
Great question.
My benefits only cover them every 2 years.
I have this conversation all the time, and I think this is the hardest part about dentistry is like the communication and explaining to people. And I learned this in dental school, is like, there's actually no right answer, because I have people who come into my office every 6 months who do their best, but whose natural bacteria in their mouth is so aggressive towards teeth that they get cavities every time they come in. Those people should have x-rays every year for sure.
That's my wife. She's got really bad, like, she takes care of her teeth like crazy, but just like
It just
she's
happens.
Yeah, like she's
Yeah.
cost me 30 grand in the last like since we've been married.
So-
I've never had a cavity in my life.
So part of it, we talk about like hygiene as a big thing with dentistry is like that's the thing you can control. What you can't control is the natural flora you get in your mouth. And so there's 3 types of people. I kind of categorize them into 3 types. The bacteria we have in our mouth is different between everybody. One group of people has bacteria that's really aggressive towards teeth. So they get a lot of cavities. So the bacteria want to eat away at your tooth structure. That sucks. There's another group of people whose bacteria are really aggressive against the gums. So they don't get a lot of cavities, but every time they go to the dentist will talk about, oh, you've lost bone, you've lost gum. And then there's a group of people, the unfortunate group, where they have both. And those are the people who usually in old age end up with no teeth. And then there's one group that has neither, and they can not brush and not floss, and they show up and their teeth are fine. And so the answer is different for everybody because we're not all built the same, right? We all have different makeups. So again, in my practice, like getting to know your patient and the patient getting to know you is important because yes, there's some people that I need an X-ray every single time you're in. Not because the $20 changes my life. It genuinely
20,
does
it's
not.
like
But whatever.
$290.
I don't even know what it is.
You probably don't.
I genuinely don't know.
But the girls that work for you that are upselling them, they know how much it is.
They do. So there's one group that really needs them. To me, the way I reframe it, a lot of life is framing. I'm like, okay, listen, what is it? It's not $290 for an X-ray. No way.
It's over 200.
Hey Siri, how much is a bite wing X-ray in Ontario? Hold on, let me show you. I think it's $43.
No.
You're right. The full checkup is probably $43. So, anyways, the takeaway is, if you're high risk, high caries, the reason I take an X-ray on a patient is not to make the $40. It's I'm taking the X-ray to catch the thing when it's small. Because what ends up happening is like, say I take the X-ray every year, right? We're talking about cost and we're talking about radiation and we're talking about the after effect. If that X-ray catches a cavity when it's small, okay, it's $220, whatever it is, for a small cavity. If I don't take that X-ray and I take it a year later, and now that cavity is so big that it's become a root canal, and now you're $2,500 in, and a root canal and a crown, it might be $3,000. If we don't take that X-ray for an additional year, and now the whole thing is rotten, now you're pulling the $2,000.
So you can't see most cavities like just visibly?
On the surface, no, and that's the problem. So we see visually. So we see visually what your toothbrush touches. So when you brush your teeth, it's all the exposed surfaces, right? So I can see all the exposed surfaces with my eyes. But the parts that you floss, the spots between your teeth, I can only see once they get to about 20 or 30% of the tooth structure being damaged. Because these bacteria are so smart. Am I going to give you guys an anatomy lesson here? Is this too boring? Just stop me. I wasn't going to go into that.
I want to hear your best pitch to sell this guy on an X-ray.
No. So
lay it on.
So the tooth is like an apple. I'm going to use that analogy again. So you have the skin of the apple, right? So what the bacteria do is they try and pierce a tiny little hole in the skin of the apple to get into the bulk of the apple, the inside, which is softer, which is more nutritious for them, which they can eat away at. So what they do is they make a tiny little pinhole. So let's say between your teeth where I can't see and your toothbrush can't touch where the floss goes. They make a tiny little pinhole and they bore a hole in about 1 millimeter or 2 to get to the bulk of your tooth, which is the second layer. And then they start to eat away at that. And the only time the dentist will know is once that inside tooth structure is eaten away so that the outside shell collapses. So you need the outside shell to collapse. By that stage, 30% of your tooth structure is gone. Now you're closer to a root canal or a big filling or a crown. So no, visually we can't, and that's the dilemma.
The shit Shahab teaches you.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, don't be cheap, bro.
Follow through on your jump shot.
Always follow.
I've learned it's only supposed to be $43.
So yeah, you look up the X-ray. But the takeaway is typically I have this conversation with my friends, right? Because I grew up like the environment I grew up in. A lot of my friends are like, "Nah, you're just scamming people." I'm like, "I'm not scamming people." I'm like, the entire goal of that X-ray is to catch stuff when they're little. So you don't actually have to end up spending a ton of time.
It's to pay for your third
Lambo.
Lambo.
Bro, no.
It's for your third Lambo.
The implants, once your tooth fails, is what pays for the Lambo.
But implants aren't usually being done by the dentist anyways, right? You're handing that off to...
Yeah, usually it goes off to the specialist or whatever. Yeah. So back to your answer. Usually we're not taking x-rays to make the money because that $40 isn't going to make a huge difference. Most dentists are geared towards your best interest. So they're trying to catch stuff early.
Right.
That being said, like every other profession, there's 12% who are ridiculous and are out for your money, and they make it hard for everybody else. And so again, I think with doctors, with dentists, I think relationships matter. Long-term relationships matter, and communication matters. Because if you're showing up to my office, we know nothing about each other, and your concern is that I'm taking advantage, it's not a healthy relationship.
For sure.
If you're showing up to my office and my genuine interest is paying off my Lambo, not a good relationship. So
I don't know, maybe I like your Lambo.
Long-term relationships matter, is the takeaway, and risk matters. So for you, so you used your example, like you, probably every couple of years just to make sure nothing horrible is happening. For your wife, who says, do it more often because you're going to catch
every 2 years
stuff.
she has to get something done anyway.
Just catch it early and solve it. The numbers are actually like, it's kind of crazy how it escalates. Like a filling, let's say like $250 to $300. If you don't catch the cavity while it's in the filling stage, and it goes to the next stage, now that's a root canal and a crown. That's usually about $2,500 to $3,000. So that's $2,000 jump in solution to solve the problem. And then if you don't catch it at that stage, and it's to the point where it needs to come out now, there's a $6,000 tooth. So
and sometimes there's not enough gum. Like my wife, they had to put like a gum in there, like put bone in there.
Poor Kate, everybody's learning everything about her mouth.
Like her teeth look awesome, but they look great.
They do I saw her at the golf tournament. Her smile's amazing.
Payment.
Yeah, her smile's amazing. But yeah, so our goal genuinely is to catch stuff early so it doesn't get into the more advanced stages.
Yeah.
I always tell my friends, if your dentist is driving a Lambo, you probably need a new dentist.
He does have a few nice cars.
What's
Chris, keep us on track.
Yeah. Is that my job today? I guess that's my job today.
Hey, we got to go off the rails.
You're the voice of
it's
reason
way-
for
way
once.
more
This is
fun.
good.
Yep, that's right. So my next question was just going to be about all the hype around some of these dental devices. Like, I know when you get to our age, there's guys using electric toothbrushes and water picks, and name your, solution you saw on an infomercial.
Yeah.
What do you recommend? What
These
should
things
we
they
be
put in their
using?
mouth and they light up like blue for like
the
20 minutes.
UV light one. Like, what should we be doing?
I'm going to give a shout out to Chris Sandell, who's a really good contractor that is a part of the Burlington Dads. And Chris, at my house, we had a flood. And when we were renovating the flood, I said, hey, Chris, I kind of want a gym in my basement. And he's like, okay, I'll build you a gym. I was like, I want mirrors on the wall. And he's a hilarious dude, right? He looks at my body up and down. He's like, you're not going to use the fucking gym. And I was like, I want the gym. So he built me a nice gym, and it has a treadmill, and it has weights, and it has awesome mirror and a good TV.
Still with
And
the price tags on them.
I never use it. I sit there with a beer in my hand and a bag of chips to watch NFL games. So I have the fancy gym, but I don't use it. And it's the same thing applies to the dental tools. It's like, it doesn't take a ton. Like in the third world, they use branches off of trees and they splay them and brush their teeth. And if you use it, it works. And all the other gimmicky stuff, the stuff off Instagram, like usually garbage. I order most of it just to like try it out, but I wouldn't go too far. I think electric toothbrushes are huge. I think those are important. I think at this stage,
Better or worse for your gums though than a regular toothbrush?
so you have to use it different than a regular toothbrush. So we're all around the same age. We're of a generation where you use the toothbrush and you have to scrub and go in circles and whatever. The electric toothbrush is more passive. It's doing the work. So all you actually have to do is run it along, like just create the contact time. So it's touching each part of your tooth and your gum. It will do the work for you. Where people run into trouble is when they use an electric toothbrush, like a regular toothbrush, where they're scrubbing with it, because now they're putting pressure and it's vibrating and it creates some damage. The newer ones actually will beep at you. I got a Sonicare one as a dentist. I started using it and it started to yell at me because like too much. It go beep 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 because I was pressing too hard on my gums. So the idea is the electric one does the job. It's better than a regular handheld toothbrush. But you have to let it just ride along the gum line. You don't have to scrub or push or do anything crazy. Just run it along the gum line. Water picks for I recommend it. I do some implant work and a lot of bridge work and aesthetic stuff. I recommend that for all my like older patients because one thing with age is our dexterity changes, right? So when you have high end dentistry that's not natural stuff, the water pick is just like a super water jet. It's a power wash, right?
Yeah.
You just power wash your teeth. It makes life easier than trying to get into every nook and cranny by hand. Because when you're 80 years old and you got $50,000 worth of dentistry in your mouth, you can't floss every nook and cranny. So electric toothbrushes and water picks I'm a big fan of. But for younger people, people with their natural teeth, just whatever you're going to use, as long as you use it.
Yeah.
Reasonable. Instagram, let me tell you. Instagram
I remember
story.
growing up, like I grew up in
Grove, eh?
Thunder Bay, like in the middle, out in the bush. I remember watching my dad. He would like dip his toothbrush in peroxide and brush it with just peroxide. And like I tried that once when I was like, I don't know, my mid-20s. I did it, and I guess I had like a little cut on one of my gums or a mark.
Hurts.
I fucking burned like crazy. I'm like,
But it
that
works.
Stubborn son
But it
of a
works.
bitch did this every day, every couple days.
Yeah. My brother-in-law is an Albanian guy. He's perfect teeth, and like he grew up like in the hills of Albania, and never had a cavity, no problems. And he's like, I just rinse with salt and water. What's the problem? Like, yeah, you use salt. It doesn't matter what you use, as long as you don't let the bacteria sit on your tooth, and you don't get the flora in your mouth get out of control. You're usually good. I had a patient. This is a whitening. Whitening's a fucking, it kills me, man. Somebody bought whitening off of Instagram. And so the problem with online stuff is there's no regulation. You don't know where you're getting it from.
With the amount of peroxide in it and stuff.
So it's okay. Like if you buy a shirt and it disintegrates in the wash, it's fine. If you buy shoes and the sole comes off, it's fine. But for anything like health related, I had one lady, she came in and she bought whitening off the internet, and it literally ate away at all her teeth. So we actually had to do 30 grand worth of crown and bridge to rebuild her teeth. So I tell my patients, I just paid $100 at Shoppers, because you know what, Shoppers
buy it from your dentist. Like
buy it from your dentist.
Yeah, our dentist. My wife buys it from our dentist.
We do it at cost, because I'm like, please just don't buy it anywhere else.
Just not much. It's like $40 or $60.
It's buy this thing at cost from your dentist. Like
you pay for the molding or whatever that you got. But like
exactly,
whatever.
It's not much. But people, we're all like big into fads. So she bought something off the internet. She came on. She's like, I whitened my teeth and all my enamel's gone. I had never seen anything like it before. So word to the wise in terms of health is, chintz on certain things, but don't chintz on your
Don't buy
health.
those sauna light ones that glow in your mouth and come with the free
It's
butt
pretty,
plug.
man.
The matching butt plug.
It's hilarious because like
Miles is shaking his head right now. Going, fuck, I got sucked into the last one of those orders.
Or maybe Googling it.
I got one right now.
Returning that, not giving it to the girlfriend for Christmas.
Just you know, like your dentist, your local drugstore, like they'll get their sued to the ends of the world if something like that happens. Whereas the random whitening you bought off of Temu, like there's no repercussion.
Temu whitening.
Temu whitening, like it's not a great idea. Yeah. Please don't sue me, Temu. I'm not. My pockets aren't that deep.
Your office has got those trays. There was an upper tray, lower tray kit that you guys had. That was dynamite.
I'm a simpleton, man. I try to make things literally as simple as possible. So I tried everything, and I was just like, okay, this stuff's perfect. Like, and the best thing is like what I use, my dentist wife uses. So like, it's probably good. And we get all these questions all the time about how about this one, how about that one. Like a billion things out there. Sometimes we don't need to investigate every single new thing on the market. And unfortunately, like when things aren't regulated, it becomes a big problem. So yeah, we have the one in our office. I find it works. It doesn't cause too much sensitivity. Whitens. I think it's like $120. I'm not a salesman. But like sometimes people will ask me about like in-office whitening. Like there's a lot of side businesses that people do. It's like $500-$600 for whitening. I'm like, you can do it, no problem. But most of what you're paying for is the chair time. You're taking up my time, and I got to pay my staff, so it costs a lot. I talk most people out of the high-end, quote-unquote, whitening. The only exceptions being if you got a photo shoot the next day where you need to be a supermodel, or your wedding is this weekend and you need a real hard, like real super bright white. But for most people, just slow and steady at home with the trays we have work perfectly.
What happens at your house when somebody gets a cavity?
Bro,
this has to have happened.
I tell this. I tell this.
Mad. Does the wife get mad at you, or do you get mad at the wife?
I tell this story all the time. Like part of the reason, aside from the fact that the girl I met in New York University was super good looking and smart, part of the reason I became a dentist is I was a guy who went to the dentist every friggin' time in high school and had a cavity every time. And I was like, I got to figure out why this is happening. And my brother, whose hygiene wasn't as good, wasn't getting it. And my wife, she was an immigrant kid, and she had experience as a kid showing up to Canada with a whole mouthful of rotten teeth. So we're pretty diligent on it. But you also have to keep things in perspective, right? So is a cavity a big deal? No, like in the grand scheme of things, like it happens. It's not the end of the world. No one's gonna die. The idea is catch it. Well, you could die if it gets out of control, but for the most part, no one's gonna die. You gotta keep things in perspective. So my kids, well, one of them who shall remain unnamed. Mom's a dentist. Dad's a dentist. Good dentist. And we went and we took X-rays for the first time. And the kid had 8 cavities.
Whoa.
Bro, it was like a shock.
Did you tell anybody at the office?
I tell everyone because I want them to understand that it's human. So what generation are our kids growing up in? There's 3 birthday parties every weekend. Yeah. There's cake and candy every weekend. Every loot bag has a bunch of candy. Like
food's just jacked up in sugar. Yeah, and stuff,
genetically, we're not wired to be able to handle this much sugar. And so even with parents who floss you every single night, you're sneaking a candy bar, like you got them hiding under your bed, you got candies hiding in your drawer. It's gonna happen. Was it the end of the world? No. She was lucky that her parents were dentists, so that it didn't cost an arm and a leg. But still, so is it a big deal? No. But back to like parenting, it's just like teaching the kid, hey, like just good habits matter. Yeah. Because in the long term, they'll get you. And so whether it's eating, whether it's exercise, whether it's studying, whether it's brushing and flossing your teeth, it's just good habits matter. And that's the big lesson, I think. So no, we didn't make too much of a fuss of it. There may have been some tears, but the poor kid also, like, we're old school, we're not gentle parents. So the poor kid also had to sit through being awake through 8 fillings. And I think that will teach a lesson.
Yeah. Got any dad hacks to keep them brushing at whatever age?
Oh, man. Dad hacks.
Does dipping it in whiskey still work?
No.
And help put them to sleep?
That's the old school, right? When you had an infection, they just put the cognac or whiskey or grappa, whatever it is. Yeah, put them to sleep. No, there really is not. It's just like everything we do, it's annoying. It's just constantly being on them and constantly with that message of consistency matters. And like I said, in everything in life. And so, yeah, we just got to be at them. And they're not going to listen half the time, but your voice will be in the back of their head. And when we're long gone, that voice will be in the back of their head. Consistency matters. Eat well, exercise, take care of your mental health, take care of your family and your friends. You know, there's no hacks. There's no hacks in life, I don't think.
What's, without using any names, give us a funny... anything that happened in your clinic, a funny patient story, a funny checkup story. Give us something good.
You know, sometimes people ask, what's the grossest thing that you ever saw? And so when you graduate dental school, what ends up happening is typically you go to very small towns because nobody wants to see a kid who graduated yesterday who's never done anything, right? So I would drive 2.5 hours north, work at a clinic for 2 days. So I'd stay in a little motel and drive home. And it was a town full of farmers. And this is, first year working for sure. And a gentleman came in, he's a farmer. And, you know, just old school, great guy, calm. He says, hey, I got something on my front tooth. And I said, okay, no problem, Mr. X. I'll have a look at it. And I've only gagged twice in my life. So he opened his mouth. And at the dentist office or any other way. So he opens his mouth and I look and what the hell is this? You gotta remember dental school, like to graduate as a dentist, this is actually kind of scary. Is like, you don't actually have to do a lot of dentistry. Like academically, it's very rigorous, but hands-on, it's like super like passive. So you don't do a lot. You pull like 20 teeth and congratulations, you're a dentist. This guy sits in my chair and we have this tool. It's called a spoon excavator. So it's like this super tiny spoon where you can like rub against something and see if it's soft. And so he opens his mouth and he's only got like 6 teeth left and his front tooth is hurting him. When was the last time you were at the dentist? He's like 3 or 4 years ago when my last tooth hurt. Okay. And so I take this little tiny spoon on his front tooth. And so it's the inside aspect of his front tooth. And I scoop. And I looked at my scooper and I threw it on the table and I walked out of the room and I gagged so hard. He had it looked like a spider or some sort of tick that had died inside his tooth, but he's just like a small town country boy, didn't hurt him. It probably was there for like, I would say a year for sure. So I scooped it out. I looked at it and I'm like 27-year-old dude, like my first job ever. And I was just like, threw it on the counter and left. And then I came back and I was like, Mr. Jones, I think it was Ashley Jones. Mr. Jones, I think we need to take your tooth out of your head.
Yeah, and don't worry about the tartar.
Don't worry about the tartar.
Don't worry about that.
So that
you got to worry about the Lyme disease you have now.
That probably was the grossest because I scooped it out and I looked and there was like 6 or 8 legs pointing up. I was just like, I cannot believe it got this far. So thank you for not throwing up, guys.
Yeah,
that's one. There's a lot.
Crazy.
There's a lot of them. But
okay, and without naming names, what's the stupidest question you've ever been asked inside of your practice?
It's like today, Jamie.
Jamie doesn't want to pay for a fucking X-ray.
Stupidest. There's no stupid questions, man. Because the reality is like it's just people don't know. And again, part of the reason I became a dentist, I was that kid. I was like, this friggin' dentist. I never forget. I'm watching him drive out in his Mercedes, and he's diagnosing cavities on me every week, and I got to come back out constantly. Like, this guy's a crook. And then you go into the profession and you go, oh, okay. There's a lot of good being done. Stupid question. No, there's no stupid questions. My job is to educate people, so I'm not even gonna.
It's a good political answer.
I'm not gonna.
What's the funniest thing a kid has ever said to you at your clinic?
Oh man, funniest thing. Kids are amazing, man. They say so much stuff. I can't think of one, honestly. I wish I knew this. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Kids in general are like the best patients because they're so like honest and genuine. Oh man.
Yeah, mine is the reason. No, did you get
one? Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, the most common hilarious kid thing to me, and it's very common, is not what kids say to me. It's what kids say to their grandparents. Because a very common thing I get is like, we're a 50-year-old practice, as GPT told you. And I get grandparents coming in and being like, hey, can you give me crowns or veneers, or can you fix my teeth? Because my grandkid is embarrassed by how yellow or brown my teeth are. So it's not what the kids are saying to me. It's kids will be like, Grandma, why is your front tooth so yellow? And grandma gets all self-conscious and they come to the dentist and they want to get it fixed. So from kids, they're a great business builder because they're so friggin' honest.
Here's Shahab just feeding those kids lollipops. Hey, don't forget to tell your grandma to come in.
Grab Coca-Cola on your way out.
Go ask grandpa while he's missing his front 3 teeth. Yeah.
I'm getting into the fucking dental practice, man.
Yeah. Kids are sneaky with that, man. And it's something with like brushing your teeth. Like both my kids are the same thing. Like they'll, we try and enforce it the best we can, but man, they'll find ways around.
Every excuse.
Yeah, my wife, I remember when they had to brush on their own, like when my eldest was old enough, she'd always used to say like, did you brush your teeth? Mm-hmm. She'd say, yeah. She's like, I'm going to go check your toothbrush and make sure it's wet.
It's dry.
And so the first couple times she'd get busted. But then she clued in that she was getting busted.
So she just wet the brush.
Now her game was before she went to bed, and I caught her doing it one time. She runs the tap, dips the thing, puts it on the side, and goes to bed. I'm like, honey, you know that an extra 30 seconds you could have actually done the thing? Like,
but then she goes to the mom and says, yeah, but I saw Daddy doing that.
yeah, that's right. I skip. I only do it
Daddy
when I'm
fell
2 weeks
asleep on
away
the couch last night and didn't brush.
No, honey, that was Daddy dipping it in the whiskey.
Well, this is the thing, right? You talking about hacks. There's no hacks with kids. It's just constant messaging. Kids are so smart, so they need consistency. They need to just they do it, they don't do it. They're going to take shortcuts. They're going to find tricks. They're going to find ways to weasel out of it. But the consistent messaging in every aspect of life, I think, is important.
Yeah, for sure. You want to do some fun stuff?
Yeah.
Did we say before we have some fun and we sign off?
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask you: is there anything else you wanted to be serious about? Anything else you wanted to say to all the dads listening?
I just I think sometimes as dads we feel like we're on an island on our own, and I think we should all feel really blessed to be part of this Burlington Dads community. I think we should be really blessed. We should consider ourselves blessed to have such good leadership, and I think we should really focus in on as parents, and a thing that I was taught is objectivity. Let's really try to focus in on like looking out for the whole village, the whole community. And sometimes especially a young parent, we tend to fall into our like, I'm going to fight to the death for my kid. I think we should fight for our kids for sure. But I think in a society, in a city, in a community, in a village, learning to be objective and assessing situations and dealing with it outside of the emotional realm is a really important goal or aspiration for dads. That would be my big thing.
That's big, man. That's big.
Yeah, totally agree. We usually ask a few questions to our guests, and
Miles, turn up the heat.
they have have some fun with it. So today we talked about a bunch. We talked about your father. We talked about your father-in-law. We talked about some advice you had growing up. So if you had to sum it up to a dad that's listening in right now, what is the best advice you could give?
So, dad listening right now, again, man, my biggest thing, when you're raised in an environment of instability and war, and you see a lot in the world, it's taking a step back and just looking at the good, looking at the commonality with your peers, realizing that we're all the same. We all have the same goals and aspirations, no matter what our background or our upbringing is, especially in a community like this. And just doing our best. Again, like I said 2 seconds ago, is of being objective, being community-minded, and pushing out the emotion and the noise, and just making sure that we stick to our basic principles of doing good for ourselves, for our families, and for our communities.
Yeah.
That wasn't fun at all. That was really serious.
No.
You're just a good dude, man. You're just a good dude.
Sorry, man. It's boring as shit. I told Chris, I'm like, you got the most boring guy. Like, there's nothing fun about me.
No, that's not true, man. That's not true.
Thanks, buddy.
Next question is a little segment we call Dream Car Garage.
Oh, you're going to hate my answer.
Rules are, bro.
You're going to hate my answer.
We've had every spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's no wrong answers. So Dream Car Garage goes like this. The rules are simple. You have all the money in the world, but you need to own 3 vehicles. A daily, a winter beater, and a flex.
Okay.
Give me the 3.
What's the daily?
It's a hard one, because to me, if you have more cars than you can drive on the daily, you're wasting your fucking money. Is the reality, and you should be spending it on other stuff. The daily should probably be a Toyota Camry, because it's like super dependable. What was the other one?
It's great, man. It's a great answer. That's all the time
I'm
we
the
have
most
for you.
boring person ever. I'm
daily
not
is a Toyota Camry.
Yeah,
What's a winter beater? What would you like to drive in
I'd
this
say
Canadian
a
winter?
G-Wagon, a Mercedes G-Wagon would be
I
a
mean,
good.
it's a Toyota Camry with heat.
Toyota Camry with 2 winter tires on the front.
I think the G-Wagon would be your winter beater.
G-Wagon.
Okay.
I love it. And then you get space for a flex. What's the one car? Fuck it all. You're going to drive it. What is it?
Does a private jet count?
Cool.
I think I'd like a private
Like
jet to
that-
fly
there you
around. I would never do it. But I think that would be the next one. If the G-Wagon is my winter beater, I think it has to be a private jet.
There's some range in that, eh? Going from a Camry to a private jet. That's
I will
quite-
probably never get past the
Roll up in the
Camry.
Camry with the 2 shitty fucking winter tires on the front to the private airport.
What's the worst vehicle ever designed or ever sold?
The ugliest. What do you think the ugliest vehicle is?
I love it. The Pontiac 6000. You guys know what that is?
6000 LE.
Yeah. So, and
The Ghoulie.
but I love it because it was one of the cars. It was the second car we had when we came to Canada, and it was the upgrade from the Oldsmobile beat up car that my parents got as an immigrant. I remember when we got the Pontiac 600, I looked at it, I'm like, oh, this thing's so fucking ugly, but it's new to us.
One
And
of my
I was so
buddies had
happy
one in
about
high
it.
school. It was awesome.
It was a great car.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
6,000 LE.
I'm never getting invited to Haggerty's garage ever.
Hey, if you still got a 6,000 LE, you're definitely invited. They'll park that shit
Mr.
inside.
Haggerty, I'm
mint.
sorry.
It's mint. If you had to drink only one fun beverage, what would that fun beverage be?
The rest of your life.
Oban.
Yeah.
Oban. Yeah.
So
Oban.
specifically, Oban.
Yeah. To me, this is my like. To me, Oban is like you're having whiskey and a cigar, and you're sitting around the campfire all in one. And to me, I don't know, it touches my soul. And doing it with you guys is even better.
Yeah,
So
cheers.
thank you.
What a
Thanks,
great
man.
answer. So last one.
This is how we close it out.
This is
Oh,
how we
boy.
close it out.
All right.
So we ask all of our guests to bring us a dad joke. And I'm hoping yours is appropriately themed. Did you bring us a dad
All right,
joke?
we got this one.
You got
we
a
got this one.
dentist dad joke?
Yeah,
Let's go.
we got this one. What did the dentist say to Tiger Woods when he was in his chair?
To Tiger Woods.
What did the dentist say to Tiger Woods when he was in his chair?
You've been in a lot of mouths?
Let's have it.
Oh my, you've got a hole in one.
Okay.
There you go.
And on that note, Shahab, we want to say thanks, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Appreciate your wisdom.
Thank you.
Thanks
Jason.
for making the
Thanks for
time.
having me.
Yeah, appreciate you, man.
Perfect.
Cheers
Thank
one
you.
last
Cheers.
time.
Cheers.
Thanks, man.
Cheers to you, sir. Thanks, guys.